A 17-year-old boy was handcuffed and quietly walked out of his classroom between two police officers. On the floor behind him, his teacher, a white man, lay unconscious, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. An 8-second video clip captured it all, and within hours it had consumed an entire city. By nightfall, the name Keon Daniels had already spread across headlines. Violence in schools spirals out of control. Student attacks teacher, red flag for youth morality crisis. But what the world didn't see, what no camera caught, was the look in Keon's eyes as he was led away. No hatred, no fear, just a quiet stare, like someone who no longer believed justice was a thing meant for boys like him. They say a punch only lasts a second, but the pain behind it? That can take a whole lifetime to build. Keon had dark skin, wiry limbs, and a way of walking that made him seem older than 17. Most mornings he showed up in a wrinkled button-down, worn-out sneakers, and curls that had grown past the point of care. But his eyes always burned bright, like his mind was somewhere far beyond the classroom walls. He used to be one of the top 5 students in his class. He had once stood on a district stage, representing his school in a debate contest. A music teacher once said, "That boy's got perfect pitch. You don't see that often." An Ivy League scholarship wasn't a dream, it was a plan. That was 11 months ago, before his mother, Rosa Daniels, a night shift nurse, was tackled in a grocery store while waiting in line for bread. Wrong person, wrong skin, wrong time. The officer said, "Our mistake." "Sorry." She ended up in a coma. Keon stopped turning in homework. He drifted to the back row, skipped piano practice, turned off his phone. No one asked why, no one noticed. That afternoon, the sunlight poured down the hallways of Elmcrest High, soft and golden, like nothing could go wrong. But inside a second-floor classroom, everything did. A shaky phone video caught the moment. A tall, quiet black boy in a gray hoodie, backpack slung off one shoulder, standing face-to-face with Assistant Principal Claremont. Was it a slap? Number, it was a real punch. Delivered with no warning, no scream, no threat, just a clean, focused motion, like something that had been swallowed and buried deep, until it couldn't be anymore. Claremont, a white man in his 50s, fell back into a desk, eyes wide, lips split. Someone screamed. Phones clicked. 8 seconds. End of clip. The internet judged fast. Violence starts with the undisciplined. No future Ivy League. Band security came in. Keon stood still. No panic, no excuses. Hands loose at his sides, breathing steady, like he had waited for this moment to come, and it finally had. Maybe it started the day Claremont made him kneel for being late, while letting his white classmates slide, or the time he chuckled when Keon's mother was mocked as just a floor mopper in scrubs. Keon never mentioned any of it. He didn't need to. 2 officers showed up. One of them, Dale Wickham, close to 50, his eyes dulled from years of doing this job, stepped forward. "Keon Daniels?" The boy nodded. "You know why you're being detained?" He nodded again. The cuffs clicked shut, left wrist then right. His arms looked too thin for the metal, like they belonged to someone who'd only ever been led to bus stops and libraries. Not jails. They walked him out. He never looked back. Not once. In the far corner of the hall, Claremont sat up, a cold pack pressed against his cheek. He waved off help, kept his eyes on the door where Keon had just disappeared. He muttered to the principal, "I told you!" That kid was trouble. From the first day I saw him, with that hood up and that look in his eyes, just like his mother. No one asked what Claremont had said before the punch. No one remembered it had been exactly 21 days since Keon's mother was wrongly hospitalized. An ICU patient in a city too busy to notice. And in this world of rushed judgments and short attention spans, where 8 seconds can serve as a public trial, no one paused to consider that sometimes justice needs more than what fits inside a camera frame. In a gray-painted room tucked inside the county precinct, a teenage boy sat motionless across an old metal table. No yelling, no tears, just stillness. His fingers laced tightly in his lap, like letting go would cause everything around him to fall apart. He had just punched his assistant principal, hard enough to knock a grown man backward into a desk. Now, Keon Daniels was officially a juvenile violence suspect. Sitting across from him was Officer Dale Wickham. Salt and pepper hair, a face that had seen too much. He'd handled hundreds of cases like this, but never one where the silence alone felt like it was choking the room. "Your name is Keon Daniels?" A small nod. "Born in 2006? Another nod. "Do you have a legal guardian?" A pause. "Where's your mom, Keon?" No answer. Wickham studied the boy's face, his head lowered, eyes ringed in red. Not from crying, but from fighting the urge to. There were shadows beneath his eyes, those deep, sleepless kinds. His cheeks had a worn-out pallor, the kind you see in kids who've gone too long without anyone asking how they're doing. He wasn't in uniform, just a faded gray hoodie, soft at the seams from too many wash cycles and not enough new clothes. Out there, people were calling Keon a threat, a delinquent, a lost cause. They didn't know. His mother, Rosa Daniels, was lying unconscious in ICU. A night shift nurse misidentified as an accomplice during a robbery. She had been shoved to the ground, her head hitting a steel post. Brain hemorrhage, no charges, no apology, no paperwork filed. Just a whispered wrong person. And Keon had seen it all. He followed the ambulance, waited outside the ER for 7 hours, told no one, cried to no one, just held onto his backpack, and the letter his mom had written but never sent, still folded in the pocket of his hoodie. 3 weeks later, he punched Assistant Principal Claremont. No one knew what led to the blow. They only saw what fit inside a headline. A kid hit a teacher. Wickham cracked open a water bottle, placed it on the table. The boy didn't reach for it. "Do you want to call someone?" Keon shook his head. "Anyone you'd like to see?" Still nothing. "A parent? Your mom or dad?" No response, only silence, thick as cement. Wickham tapped the table, slow. "You know what people are saying about you?" He didn't wait for an answer. "They're calling you a problem, a violent kid, the black boy who hit his teacher, the kind who'll never get better." Keon looked up. His eyes weren't defiant. They were heavy, unfocused, like staring through fog. Not angry, just tired. Then he whispered, "I know." And that was it. No more questions, no more words. Just a worn-out cop and a broken boy in a room built for blame. No one in that building spoke of the mother lying unconscious because someone else pulled the wrong name. No one noticed the child who'd stopped crying, not because he wasn't in pain, but because he'd learned long ago. Sometimes silence is the only thing left when no one ever really listens. Ask any of Keon Daniels' former teachers, and they might tell you the same quiet truths. He was a good student, not the kind born brilliant, but the kind who studied like his life depended on it. Because deep down, he knew no one else could carry the weight for him. He was never late, never skipped class, always carried an old notebook, pages filled edge to edge with biology notes and reminders from his mother. "You'll have to work twice as hard, Keon, because some people already expect you to lose the moment you walk in." The principal once described him as quiet, respectful, but hard to reach. His English teacher said, "He writes things that make you stop and read them again." But then, those praises faded. Not all at once, just slipped away, unnoticed. No one could quite say when Keon stopped being a student and became just another data point on the school's behavioral risk dashboard. It started with a routine test. Keon showed up 4 minutes late, his first tardy in nearly 3 years at Elmcrest. His teacher logged the infraction. Keon didn't argue, just lowered his head and asked if he could take the exam during lunch. The system recorded, "Exhibit signs of delay, poor time management." A week later, he was summoned to the counselor's office for wearing a hoodie that didn't follow dress code. Keon quietly explained, "It's the only clean one I had left." No follow-up questions, just another note in his file. Dress code violation, uncooperative. Then came the theft incident in the gym. No suspects, no evidence. But Keon was one of 3 students called in for a conversation. No recording, no formal write-up. Just a vague warning. Some behaviors will leave you with no way to fix things later. His record now read, flagged for close monitoring, ethical conduct in question. Here's what no one could explain. Keon had never raised his voice, never gotten into fights, never made a threat. But after each visit to the office, he spoke a little less. His notebooks got thinner, he finished lunch faster, and he stopped showing up to tutoring altogether. The real fracture came in November when he applied for a spring semester scholarship. His application was returned. Reason? Failure to meet character requirements. Keon read the line. Candidates must maintain an A in conduct for 2 consecutive semesters. He folded the paper, didn't show it to anyone, just slid it into the back pocket of his backpack next to the recommendation letter from his old literature teacher, the one who left 2 months ago. A few days later, someone spotted him in the school library, sitting alone, not reading, not writing, just staring at the empty chair by the window, the same one where his mother used to wait after school. No one asked if he was okay. No one sat beside him. Eventually, the system that claimed to catch struggling students before it's too late issued an internal memo. Keon Daniels, emotionally unstable, recommended for placement in special monitoring, should not be considered for group activities or leadership programs. In just under 3 months, the boy who used to make teachers reread his essays was now a name crossed off the award list. No one hated Keon. No one spoke ill of him. They simply stopped seeing him until the day he threw that punch at Vice Principal Claremont. Suddenly, all eyes turned back, and someone said, "We warned you." His files had red flags for a while. That afternoon, the office lights on the second floor of an aging commercial block on the east side of town hadn't been switched on yet. Sunlight filtered through dusty blinds. Stacks of legal folders cast long shadows over a half-finished cup of coffee. Cold for hours now. A young assistant stepped in with a new file, just dropped off from Elmcrest High. Another student assault case. Public's already dragging him through the mud. No one wants to take it. Apparently, he's flagged as uncooperative. Jasmine Crockett replied, eyes still on her screen. She didn't look up until she turned to the third page. Just beneath the section labeled Student Behavior, there was nothing. No notes, no evaluations, no sign-offs. Just a blank space where systems are taught never to leave room. Stranger still, the guardian section was locked. She narrowed her eyes. For a minor, guardian information is always there. Name, job, emergency contacts, medical background, mandatory. But in this case, the line read, restricted. Access requires administrator code. Jasmine stood, opened an archive directory, typed in a backdoor clearance, an override code used only in emergencies. One line appeared. Rosa Daniels, admitted September 7th, County Hospital, ICU 3B. No alternate guardian listed. No family response recorded. She stared at the screen. No response. No one filled out a guardian form. A child was arrested and no one checked where he lived. Who did he belong to? His mother had been in a coma for 3 weeks, and no one, not the school, not law enforcement, bothered to call her name. That's when Jasmine stood, took the file, and left. County Hospital sat at the end of Wexley Avenue, small, crowded, worn. The ICU on the 3rd floor was divided by thin beige curtains. Each bed had its own rhythm, beeping, breathing, waiting. A nurse guided her to bed 7. She's stable, out of critical condition, but hasn't regained consciousness. No family has come by. Rosa Daniels, right? Are you a relative? Jasmine didn't answer. She just looked. The woman on the bed had bruises across her cheek, her hair falling limply to the side. Her hands were thin and darkened, the hands of someone who'd worked too many double shifts in too few years. Above the bed, a laminated card read, Reason for admission, blunt force trauma to skull, incident during suspect apprehension. Scrawled underneath in blue ink. Confirmed, not a suspect. Mistaken identity. Jasmine pulled up Keon's file on her phone. One note, vague and fragmented. Police have interacted with student's mother. No response from student. Student withdrawn since September. September, the same month. No one updated the school's records. No one documented that Keon's mother was an accidental victim of police mishandling. No one questioned why a 17-year-old vanished from every after-school program for nearly 3 months. Jasmine tucked the folder back into her bag. She stood, didn't speak to the nurse on her way out. Down the hall, her footsteps echoed. She murmured to herself, not out of anger, but out of quiet knowing. A child dragged into a courtroom, while the adults, those tasked with responsibility, disappear into the blank spaces of a system built to forget them. She knew then the punch that landed on a school administrator's jaw wasn't just about anger. Something was being hidden, and this time she wasn't walking away until she found it. Jasmine Crockett sat inside the school counselor's office across from the Elmcrest tech staffer. In front of her, a school-issued laptop hummed quietly. She made her request plainly. "I need the full classroom footage, not just the final 8 seconds." The tech nodded, opened the school surveillance program. He scrolled through the file menu, found the date, clicked. An error message flashed. Video incomplete. 12-minute signal loss detected. 2:27 p.m. to 2:39 p.m. The punch happened at 2:40. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Hardware issue?" "Hard to say," he replied. "Usually only happens if someone interrupts the feed on purpose." A silent pause. A 12-minute gap, right before Keon hit Mr. Claremont. That alone was enough to raise questions. She opened her notebook, flipped back to the class roster from that day. One name had a tiny red question mark beside it. Deshaun M., back row, far right. Deshaun wasn't a close friend of Keon's. He was nearsighted, quiet, always wore one earbud, never volunteered, never caused trouble, but something stood out. The viral clip that flooded the internet, its camera angle matched exactly where Deshaun usually sat. When Jasmine asked him about it, he looked down. "I hit record by accident," he mumbled. "Only kept the part where it got physical. Nothing seemed important before that." She studied him. "You sure there was nothing else?" He hesitated, then almost whispering, "Even if there was," saying it wouldn't change anything. Jasmine didn't press. She thanked him and left. But as she stepped into the hallway, something tugged at her. Something small, like static at the edge of hearing. She reopened the clip, skipped the punch, skipped the chaos. Paused it, 4 seconds in. A diagonal shot. Mr. Claremont's shadow against the board. No mouth visible. No gestures. But there it was, a voice. Not Claremont's. Lower, muffled, measured. Almost like someone speaking, then chuckling softly. Jasmine pulled up an audio tool, boosted the low frequencies, stripped out background noise, and then a sentence hit the speakers like a slap across the room. "Your mom's probably rotting in jail like every other black bitch out there." No gasps, no reactions, not even a breath out of place. Only one quiet motion. Keon put down his pen and slowly curled his left hand into a fist. Most people would stop there. A slur like that. Most would think, that's why he punched him. But Jasmine didn't stop. She watched again. Same audio. This time, eyes on the background. She saw it. Top left corner of the chalkboard, a faint line of text, scribbled messily. "He said she stole pills." She screenshot it, zoomed in. The chalk handwriting, angled, pressed, thick at the start, wasn't a student's. It matched Claremont's chalk grip exactly. A tiny detail, but one that opened a deeper wound. This wasn't a one-time insult, not a burst of anger. It was a pattern. A quiet, recurring campaign to humiliate a child by dragging the only person he loved into the dirt. There was no paper trail, no formal complaints, just whispered comments, veiled accusations, and silence so routine that even the cruelty became background noise. Until one day the boy snapped, and no one knew why, because no one had been listening. Jasmine closed the video. She didn't cry, didn't rage. She just jotted a single note into her legal pad. There is no such thing as an unprovoked reaction. What's terrifying is how cruelty can become air. So constant, no one notices it's been suffocating a child the entire time. The courtroom wasn't full that day, but no one shifted in their seats. No phones, no whispering, no cameras. All eyes were fixed on the witness stand, where Keon Daniels sat in a white button-down, cuffs of his sleeves brushing against wrists still marked from the steel. To his left, Jasmine Crockett, silent, still, but her eyes scanned the room like they already knew where the truth was hiding. To his right, Mr. Claremont, dark suit, yellow striped tie, arms folded, posture stiff, like the outcome didn't matter. The judge cleared his throat and nodded. Ms. Crockett, do you have something for the court? She stood. No papers, no folder, only a small black USB between her fingers. Your Honor, we request permission to replay the original classroom footage with enhanced low-frequency audio. A nod. The screen lit up. The clip began. At first it looked familiar, but then a voice cut through the silence, sharp as glass. Your mom's probably rotting in jail like every other black bitch out there. No one laughed. No one gasped. No one asked, why wasn't this shown earlier? The entire room just stilled. Jasmine stepped forward. Mr. Claremont's voice. Not in the original 8-second clip. Not in the school's report. Not addressed internally. Not held accountable. She turned to him. Would you like to confirm whether that's your voice? Claremont smirked. I never said that. And if someone thinks they heard it, they're mistaken. The clip could have been edited. We all know what students can do with technology nowadays. A soft hiss broke the silence. One person, one breath. Jasmine didn't flinch. She lifted a still image, the chalkboard from the same class, with one line written in faded, crooked lettering. He said she stole pills. Did you write this, Mr. Claremont? He exhaled, annoyed. I'm a teacher. I don't scribble like some kid. The handwriting is yours. Angled left, heavy on the first stroke. Matches the signature samples you submitted last year. A few heads turned. No words, just glances passed like whispers. Claremont rose slowly. I'm being targeted by a troubled student. That's all this is. But the weight of his words didn't come from volume. It came from what they represented. A system that always denies, always redirects, never looks inward. The judge raised an eyebrow. Is there any other testimony regarding these statements? Silence. One beat. Two. Jasmine said nothing. She just waited. Then a voice, small and cracking, rose from the gallery. I heard him say it too. All eyes turned. A boy, thin, glasses slipping down his nose, stood with his hands shaking. His name was Luis, Keon's classmate. He swallowed hard. It wasn't just once. He says stuff like that all the time. One day, he said, if these kids don't end up in jail, they'll just be unemployed. Claremont scoffed. He's a child. He doesn't understand adult context. Luis trembled harder. But before anyone could say another word, another voice broke in. I heard it too. Zola stepped into the aisle. She had once been in Keon's biology group. That day, Mr. Claremont told Keon, you're smart, but you'll never go anywhere. Black is still black. Jasmine didn't speak. She didn't need to. She looked at Keon, and for the first time he looked back. No tears, no smile. Just the face of someone who had finally stopped bracing for the next hit. Claremont dropped into his seat, hard, and in that moment 2 men faced each other. One, a man protected by titles, used to say ugly things in the dark. The other, a boy worn thin by silence, finally no longer unheard. Night fell slowly over the county juvenile facility. No sirens, no engines. Just the soft hum of a ceiling fan and the yellow flicker of a lone bulb stretching shadows across a concrete floor. Keon sat alone in the visitation room. The metal chair beneath him creaked faintly. His hands rested on his knees, folded gently, like he was waiting for someone to walk in and say, you can go now, even though he knew. No one would say that. The door opened. Jasmine stepped inside. No blazer, no briefcase, just a woman in a dark button-down, hands empty, her face no longer sharpened by courtroom resolve, but dulled by the quiet exhaustion of someone who had just dragged the truth into daylight and wished she hadn't needed to. She didn't sit right away, just looked at him, like she needed to see if the boy in front of her was still whole, after everything. Keon broke the silence first, voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "You didn't have to come." Jasmine shook her head. She pulled out the chair. "No one's here because they have to, Keon. I came to ask, after everything's out there, after they finally heard the truth, how do you feel?" He lowered his gaze. His eyes were red, but dry. After a long pause, he said, "I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. It's like people saw the bruises, but the pain still belongs to me." She nodded, didn't interrupt, didn't try to fix it. He exhaled. "Miss Crockett, yeah? Am I going to juvie?" He didn't ask it like he feared the answer. He asked it like someone asking if it might rain tomorrow. Someone used to not controlling outcomes, just bracing for them. Jasmine didn't answer right away. She looked at him. Not like a lawyer looks at a client, but like an adult looks at a child who should have had someone standing in front of him all along. She didn't say no. She didn't promise it'll be okay. Instead, she placed a hand on his shoulder. Firm just enough. A signal. "I'm here. You're not alone in this." Then, in a voice quiet enough to only fill the space between them, "You're not a bad kid. You're just a son trying to hold on to the one thing he still had left. And sometimes, people call that the wrong thing." Keon didn't respond. He only nodded. Not in agreement, but like someone who'd finally been understood. One day after the hearing, a message landed in Crockett's inbox. No subject, just one line. "I'd like to speak with you, off the record, not to defend him, but to say something I should have said 2 years ago. D.H. Lyman, Principal, Elmcrest High." They met at a small cafe tucked behind the city library. Light rain, empty tables. At a booth by the window, a man sat quietly. Felt hat, sunglasses hanging off the front pocket of his shirt, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. No one would have guessed he once led a school of 2,000 students. Once received a plaque that read, "Educator of the Year." Crockett entered. He looked up, didn't offer a handshake. "You don't have to pretend to be polite. I know I deserve worse." She didn't reply, just sat down, waited. He stared out the window, eyes tired, not shattered, not frantic, just hollow. "I heard things about Claremont. Not rumors, reports. A sophomore, Asian kid. Got called some nasty slurs during PE. I received 3 complaints." He paused, swallowed hard. "But we had no proof, no camera, no recordings, no witnesses willing to speak. And the school. We were mid-review for our ethics grant, STEM funding. So, I said nothing." Crockett stayed silent. "When Keon's case blew up, I knew. I was looking at the cost of my silence." He pulled an envelope from his coat. Inside, a transfer package. A trauma-informed school not far from the city, with dorms, weekly counseling, a fresh start. Not because he hit someone, but because he was hurting for too long and no one cared enough to notice. "I want to give the boy a real beginning, not what we gave him." Jasmine skimmed the paperwork, closed the folder. "Is this your way of making peace?" He hesitated. "It's my way of making sure one more kid doesn't disappear just because I lacked the spine to stand up the first time." That was all. No handshake, no contract, no press release, just a slight turn in the current. As a man who once stayed quiet finally said something he should have said a very long time ago. It had been nearly 90 days since the last time he heard that voice say his name. Keon. Soft, warm, steady. The kind of voice that could calm a storm by simply being there. The hospital room hadn't changed. A small world with only 2 people. One lying still, the other silently sitting beside her, day after day, waiting. Every afternoon Keon came. Same chair, same hand resting gently on the bed rail. As if, by staying there long enough, she might sense it. "I haven't gone anywhere, Mom. I'm still here." And then after months of quiet hope, a flicker. Her fingers twitched, her eyelids moved, and slowly, they opened. Her gaze wandered, unfocused at first. Then it found him, that face, thinner now, tired, darkened by sleepless nights. Her lips moved, barely parting. but the words were unmistakable. "Are you okay, baby?" No questions about the hospital, no confusion, no demands, no "what happened?" or "why am I here?" Just the only question a mother asks when she wakes up between the edge of life and whatever lies beyond. Keon lowered his head. His tears didn't fall in gas. They didn't tremble out. They just slipped, quietly, like everything he'd carried, fear, rage, isolation, the weight of holding it together, was finally letting go. And he whispered, barely audible, "I'm okay now, Mom." It wasn't the truth, but it was the only answer that mattered. Not because everything had been fixed, but because for the first time in 3 months, he didn't have to carry it all alone. That weekend, the headlines changed. Gone were the bold font accusations. Student assaults teacher, youth crisis in schools. Instead, on the front page of the Sunday edition, a black and white photo, soft lighting, Keon Daniels stepping out of the courthouse. Shirt sleeves rolled, eyes forward, no smile, no shame. Just a quiet resolve that didn't ask to be understood. The headline read, "Son of misidentified nurse, from accused teen to symbol of quiet strength." No mention of Jasmine Crockett, no interviews, no quotes. But at the bottom of the article, a small photo. Behind a barricade partially obscured by shadow stood a woman, hands folded, eyes focused, watching the boy she had stood beside when no one else would. No caption, no name. But everyone who saw the picture understood. She was the reason justice finally turned around.